From homeless to millionaire, a black man's journey inspired by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Evan pushed through the roaring crowd on a New York sidewalk, the city's chaos buzzing in his ears like an endless storm. Skyscrapers loomed overhead, glass walls reflecting a life he'd built with grit and tech genius. But today, something felt different. A tight swirl of tension that gripped his chest. He almost didn't notice the man at the corner. Samuel. His clothes were torn, his beard like a wild river of gray, but his eyes, those eyes held something sharp, almost electric. Samuel's skin was weathered, cracked like old leather, but his stare sliced right through Evan's armor of confidence. "Got a second?" Samuel's voice cracked, rough and low, like a secret too heavy to hold. Evan stopped. Curiosity pinned him to the spot. Samuel leaned closer, whispering like the city could hear him. "There's a secret. A treasure tucked away from time and greed. My family hid it, long before your world of steel and screens. You want to know why my age is recorded as 93? Evan's breath hitched. 93 years? The man looked way older, but the number felt like a code, a puzzle almost begging to be solved. Samuel's story spilled from cracked lips, tales of ancestors, hidden maps sewn into worn clothes, and a fortune forgotten in basements, lost beneath these very streets. The treasure wasn't gold or jewels, not just. It was knowledge, a key to power kept locked away by a shadowy group that had hunted Samuel for decades. Evan's mind raced. His normal life of IPOs and boardrooms collided with this raw and ragged reality. What if this was bigger than him, bigger than his company, bigger than fame? Then, just like that, the air shifted. Across the street, a black SUV slowed, tinted windows flicking like hungry eyes. They were watching, silent hunters, ready to snuff out this thread before it unraveled. The crowd around them passed by, busy and blind, but Evan felt a lump in his throat. His hands trembled, a sudden chill crawling up his spine. Was this real? Or his mind spinning out from too many late nights? Samuel's tired gaze met his, thick with years of pain. "I need you, not for cash, not for glory. This secret, it's a chain, a curse. You're the only one who can break it." Evan's usual certainty faltered. His world of success suddenly seemed shallow, hollow. What good was money when truths like this were buried beneath concrete lies? His friends at the office? They'd laugh, call him naive, say he's chasing ghosts. But in that moment, Evan saw freedom in Samuel's fight. A freedom not bought, but earned through courage and sacrifice. Suddenly, a sharp shout from the street corner. The black SUV's door popped open. Shadows spilled out, moving fast, hungry and violent. Samuel grabbed Evan's arm, cold and desperate. "We don't have much time." Evan's heart slammed. What had he stepped into? Was this the moment everything he thought he knew would crumble? As the city swallowed their footsteps, the treasure waited, silent, dangerous, and almost impossible to reach. What secret was powerful enough to threaten their lives? And what price would Evan pay to uncover it? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact! Evan's heart raced as Samuel pulled him away from the street and into a narrow alley. The sounds of the city faded, replaced by the echo of their hurried footsteps on the damp pavement. He could feel the weight of Samuel's urgency, a desperate pull of truth trying to drag him deeper into its shadows. "What's really going on?" Evan hissed, glancing over his shoulder, paranoia tightening his throat. Samuel's expression twisted, a mix of fear and resolve. "They're coming for me. They'll stop at nothing. You don't understand the power behind this secret, or the danger." Just then, thunder clapped overhead, dark clouds swallowing the sky. Rain began to pour, drumming against the asphalt like a countdown. "Make it quick," Evan insisted, adrenaline surging. "What's this treasure?" Samuel leaned in, eyes burning. "It's not just knowledge, it's a key, an old key that unlocks what was buried long before your time. It holds the answers to control everything: finance, technology, even fate." The air shimmered with tension. Evan felt drawn in, each word a bolt of electricity. But out of the corner of his eye, those shadows moved closer, menacing figures slipping from the SUV that had been parked across the street. "It's a choice," Samuel continued, voice barely a whisper. "You can walk away, live your comfortable life, pretend this is just a bad dream. Or you can stand with me, change the world." Evan's mind raced. But what kind of world could he change? The doubt clawed at him, tightening like a vice. Then came the sound, a scream echoing off the walls, sharp and piercing. Evan's blood ran cold. "Run!" Samuel shouted, grabbing his arm again, this time with a steel grip. They darted deeper into the alley, but the rain slicked the cement, slowing their escape. Evan glanced back, and there they were, figures in black, faces obscured, moving with frightening precision. Panic twisted in his gut. Suddenly, Samuel stopped. "This way!" He pulled Evan to the left, into a small door that led into darkness. But just as they stepped inside, a gunshot rang out, shattering the night. Metallic smells and damp air enveloped them. The door slammed shut behind them, leaving them in an echoing chamber lit only by a flickering bulb. "What is this place?" Evan gasped, heart hammering. Samuel stepped back, eyes wide. "It's where the truth lives, where everything connects." He looked at Evan, breath shaky. "But you need to know something. It was never just about me." "What?" Before Samuel could respond, the floor shifted underfoot with a deep rumble. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a staircase spiraling down into a pit of shadows. Evan stared, wide-eyed. "What is this?" Samuel's expression morphed, and suddenly the weight of years fell from his shoulders. "I'm not just here for the secret," he confessed. "I'm here to protect something much greater. I'm the gatekeeper." Evan's heart sank. A gatekeeper? Protecting what? The walls seemed to breathe. A sudden realization washed over Evan. What if all this was a setup? Samuel paused, mouth opening as if he wanted to deny it. But then he turned, his face a mask of determination. "There are things I've been forced to bury, truth that could change everything about the life you know." The scream from before echoed in Evan's mind, intertwining with the chilling realization. What truth was Samuel hiding? And what forces had put him at the edge of this desperate gamble? Just then, the door behind them burst open. Light flooded the room as the shadows of the SUV crew rushed inside, eyes wild with intent. Evan stood frozen. No way out, no escape, only questions lurking like ghosts waiting to haunt him. Evan's heart pounded like a drum. The shadows from the SUV moved fast, their intent clear. Samuel's grip tightened on his arm, cold and desperate. "We have to run! Now!" The crowd was oblivious to the danger. People hustled by, glued to their phones, immersed in their own worlds. But not Evan. Panic coursed through his veins. Who were these people? What secret had Samuel dragged him into? Before he could react, the SUV's doors flung open. Out spilled figures in dark suits, their faces hidden behind masks. A flash of metal glinted in the sunlight, the unmistakable outline of guns. "Move!" Samuel yelled, yanking Evan down a narrow alleyway. They darted past food carts and street performers, every eye on them filled with questions and blurred confusion. Evan's mind raced. How had his life twisted so suddenly? The world he'd built, investments, accolades, and fame, felt like a distant memory, fading fast. Samuel was no longer just a homeless man. He was a link to something greater, something perilous. As they sprinted, Samuel's breath came in ragged gasps. "You need to know the truth! Your life, it's tied to mine." Evan stumbled, nearly colliding with a brick wall. "What are you talking about?" But Samuel's eyes were locked on the street. "They're looking for the treasure, and you're part of it!" Evan gritted his teeth, the weight of his past crashing into him. "What treasure?" Before Samuel could answer, a deafening boom echoed through the alley. An explosion rocked the ground, sending debris flying. Dust choked the air. He felt a sting in his arm. "Evan!" Samuel shouted. He turned to see Samuel reeling back, a dark stain blossoming on his shirt. "A bullet?" "No, Samuel!" Evan rushed toward him, but Samuel fell to the ground, the fire in his eyes dimming. Panic clawed at Evan's throat. He knelt beside him, frantically pressing on the wound. "Find the map. It's in the stitching. They won't stop until it's found." Samuel's voice trailed off, barely a whisper. Evan's world spun. This man, this stranger, was offering him a lifeline. But to know the truth meant stepping into a darkness he'd never imagined. And still, the shadows were closing in. In the chaos, Evan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He fished it out. A message from his assistant flashed on the screen. "Meeting canceled. Urgent development." "We need to reassess your security." The realization hit him like a cold wave. They knew something was off. The higher-ups were involved in this too. Evan felt the ground shift beneath him, the weight of something sinister enveloping his mind. "You have to protect it," Samuel whispered, his voice fading. "Don't let them find the truth." Suddenly, the alley filled with shouting, boots pounding. They were here. Evan felt a surge of desperation like he'd never known. He was on the brink of losing everything. Samuel's eyes met his one last time, pleading, fierce. Just then, the air crackled with electricity. A bright flash tore through the alley, blinding him. A second later, a figure emerged from the light. A woman, dressed in a sleek black suit, her presence commanding even in chaos. "Evan!" she shouted, eyes locked on him, urgency cutting through the smoke. "Get out! And don't trust anyone." In that instant, everything shattered. The truth, the treasure, Samuel's fading words, they all hung in the balance. What secrets did she hold? Evan's heart raced. He had to choose. Stay and fight for Samuel's secret, or flee into a world of unknowns. The city stretched out before him. A maze of secrets and shadows. He took a deep breath, the weight of everything pressing down hard. Which path would he take? And at what cost? Evan felt the tension crackle in the air. This woman's presence was like a bolt of lightning, both electrifying and terrifying. "You have to get out!" she yelled again, eyes fierce. He watched Samuel struggle to lift himself, blood pooling beneath him, life draining away. "No, I can't leave him!" Panic wrapped around Evan's throat like a vice. "You don't have a choice!" The urgency in her voice cut through his fear. "They're coming!" But the shadows surged forward, and chaos erupted. Gunfire rang out, ripping through the thick air. Each shot a reminder of the danger pressing in from every side. Evan felt the world tilt on its axis. He was standing on the precipice of something unspeakable, but leaving Samuel behind felt like a betrayal. "Evan!" the woman screamed, snapping him from his paralysis. "We're out of time!" Her hands gripped his shoulders, pulling him back towards the door. Every instinct in him screamed to go, but just then, a piercing silence fell over the chaos. Evan's heart raced. Where were the sounds of gunfire? It came like a storm. The door behind them ripped open again, and in strode a figure cloaked in shadows. Tall, imposing, and dripping confidence. Evan's breath hitched. It was a familiar face. A face he thought he had outrun. Charlie? Charlie, his mentor, the very man who had shaped his rise, stared at him, eyes burning cold. "Evan," he spoke, voice smooth as silk, laced with something darker. "I see you've gotten yourself tangled up in quite the mess." Evan's mind spun like a record scratching to a halt. You're part of this?" Charlie stepped closer, eyes glinting with a predatory gleam. "Oh, far more than a part, my boy. I'm at the very center of it all." "Why?" Evan could barely whisper. "The treasure you seek, the truths Samuel whispers about, they're not just secrets. They're tools for control, resources meant to be wielded. And you, Evan, with your thirst for knowledge and power, you're the perfect pawn." Evan felt the ground drop beneath him. "A pawn? In this game of life and death?" "No, I'm not." "Oh, but you are." Charlie's smile widened. "You think you've built your empire alone? You owe it all to me, to the alliances I forged, the paths I paved. And now, you're in the way." Behind them, Samuel's struggle grew weaker, breaths sharpening. "Evan, run, please! Shut him up," Charlie ordered, eyes flicking to the masked figures closing in on them. And just like that, everything Evan thought he knew shattered. He felt betrayed, not just by Charlie, but the entire foundation of his life, the very same world he'd fought to build. His mentor had played him like a fool all along. Why are you doing this? Evan's voice shook with fury and disbelief. It's not personal. It's business, Evan. Charlie shrugged like it was nothing. You want to chase after these silly secrets? Fine. But you're standing in front of a force that will do anything to keep control. You can join them, or become a casualty. Your choice. A flicker of madness danced in Charlie's eyes. In that moment, everything felt alive, charged with too many possibilities. The shadows crept closer, weapons ready, and Evan faced a chilling truth. Charlie wasn't just another enemy. He was the mastermind. Evan's mind raced. He had a choice, but the cracks in his reality were spreading fast. Samuel's urgent whispers faded into the noise, but one thing was clear. Whatever path he took now could alter everything he held dear. And then it happened. A thunderous crash from above, debris raining down as the ceiling gave way, bringing both chaos and an unexpected reality. The shadows scattered, and for a split second, Evan caught a glimpse of a way out. "Run!" he screamed, lunging for the opening as the dust swirled around him. Behind him, the terrible roar of betrayal echoed in his mind. Could he trust anyone? Was freedom even within his reach? His heart thundered as he dashed forward, fear and adrenaline propelling him into the unknown. As the shadows closed in, Evan's heart raced. The back of his mind screamed to run, but Samuel's grip tightened, anchoring him in place. Men dressed in dark suits spilled from the SUV, their movements sharp and predatory. "We don't have much time," Samuel whispered again, urgency streaking his voice. Evan felt the weight of the city around them, the panicked breath of strangers drifting past, oblivious to the danger closing in. "What do you mean? Who are they?" The questions tumbled from his lips like stones. "They want what I know," Samuel replied, his eyes darting, calculating. They want to keep the treasure hidden at any cost. Before Evan could think, a loud crash echoed as one of the men shoved his way through the crowd. The world slowed for a moment, the sound of glass shattering echoing like a death knell. Panic erupted around them. People screamed, scattering like leaves in a storm. And then a revelation. Someone pushed closer. A woman, golden hair whipping against her cheeks, her face painted with a look of shock. As she stumbled forward, Evan's heart stopped. "Samuel!" she cried, the name like wrenching steel. "What are you doing here? After all these years?" The world seemed to tilt. Samuel's face paled. "Angela, I thought you were gone." His voice cracked, a mix of hope and fear. "It's too late for that," she shouted, urgency lacing her tone. "You have to leave. They're coming for both of you." Evan felt betrayal gnawing at his insides. Who was this woman? A ghost from a past he didn't know existed? More importantly, what secret was she holding that could send shivers through Samuel, a man who had survived so much already? Samuel's hand shook in Evan's grip, the rigid walls of his confidence crumbling. "Angela, please, what do you know?" "They've been following me, Samuel. They know about the treasure. They've always known." Her voice shook, despair flooding her expression. Evan's breath hitched. Was it all just some twisted game? All this tension, the fight for hidden knowledge, was it leading to something far darker than he could fathom? The dark-suited men closed in, their eyes fierce, relentless. The crowd was parting like a river, fear pooling in the faces around them. "Run!" Evan shouted instinctively. Adrenalina corriendo por él. The crowd exploded into chaos, but Samuel hesitated, locked in a stare with Angela, a woman who seemed to both ignite and extinguish something deep inside him. Evan, no! Samuel yelled back, desperation clawing at his throat. Don't leave! But before they could move, the men lunged forward, one reaching for Samuel, fingers grasping like hungry shadows. In that moment of panic, everything unraveled. Evan turned, adrenaline screaming, and saw the flash of steel. A knife glinting under the city lights, a blade aimed straight at Samuel. Samuel, look out! But the warning was too late. A piercing scream erupted from Angela, echoing across the city street. The knife sliced through the air, finding its mark. Yet, at the last second, someone leaped in the way. In the chaos that followed, everything seemed to fragment into shards of reality. The world around Evan blurred. Voices faded, time warped, until the only thing clear was the sight of Samuel falling, breaking, like porcelain. Evan's heart stopped. The answer lay hidden in this carnage, but now darkness loomed over the treasure they sought. Was this moment the end of everything, or the beginning of a truth yet to be unveiled? He staggered back, breathless. What had he stepped into? Had he crossed the line into a battle far beyond his understanding? And who truly held the power in this city? The ones fighting for secrets buried in the past, or the ones willing to kill for them? Evan's heart raced as Samuel pulled him closer. The shadows from the black SUV loomed ominously, hungry for secrets and silence. Panic swelled in Evan's chest. He had never been in a situation like this. Run! Samuel's voice was firm, sharp, but Evan was frozen. The tension wrapped around him like a vice, squeezing out rational thought. Samuel's eyes were wide, wild. Suddenly, a loud crash ripped through the air, like thunder in a clear sky. They turned. One of the figures from the SUV lunged forward, a glimmer of silver in his hand. Evan's instincts kicked in, adrenaline racing through his veins. He grabbed Samuel and dashed down the narrow alley, the sounds of chaos unfolding behind them. The city blurred past. Brick walls, trash cans, the distant blare of horns, in a feverish rush. "Keep moving!" Samuel gasped, his grip tightening on Evan. The weight of the world was pressed against them, and the walls felt like they were closing in. Every step echoed their urgency. Then, just as they turned a corner, another figure appeared. This one wasn't from the SUV. It was familiar, too familiar. Evan's breath caught in his throat. It was Randall, his business partner, the man he trusted with everything. But Randall's expression was twisted, dark. "Evan, stop!" Randall shouted. "What are you doing here?" Evan yelled back, confusion freezing his thoughts. "Get away from him!" Randall's voice was sharp, laced with venom. Fear crashed into Evan again, settling in his gut. He's lying. It's all a scam! Samuel's dark eyes flicked from Evan to Randall, a storm brewing in his gaze. "You think you know everything, don't you, Randall? You think money keeps you safe?" Evan felt like he was standing at the edge of an abyss. "What? What do you mean?" The words spilled from him, desperate. This wasn't just a chase anymore. This was betrayal rewritten in their faces. Samuel's voice dropped, raw. "There's a reason I've been hunted. There's a reason this treasure is buried. And it's not merely a fortune, Evan. Stop talking in riddles. What treasure?" Evan gasped. He could feel the walls of his world crashing down, each revelation more chaotic than the last. The shadows crept closer. Randall took a step forward, eyes blazing with anger. It's all about control, power. Samuel's here to drag you into something you don't want any part of. Suddenly, a shot rang out. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the night. Evan's heart stopped. He looked back. Samuel had gripped his arm tighter, a look of fear etched deep across his face. But the shot hadn't come from Randall or the SUV. It came from behind them. A piercing scream rippled through the alley. Women shouting, voices rising in panic. Confused, Evan searched for the source. "Let me tell you the truth," Samuel shouted over the chaos, his eyes darting. "They're not just after me. They're after you, Evan. They need you, your connections, your network. You're part of it, whether you see it or not." The weight of Samuel's words hit Evan with an icy fist. He thought he had left that life behind, the grit, the pain, only to find it rushing back in waves. "Don't listen to him!" Randall screamed, desperation rising in his voice. But the mob had started pushing forward, and the black-clad figure from the SUV stepped into the alley, their face now partially visible. Evan's breath hitched as the moonlight kissed their features. He recognized them. The world tilted beneath his feet. How could it be you?" Evan's voice barely escaped his lips. The realization crushed his chest like a boulder. As the stranger moved closer, Samuel's grip squeezed tighter. "Don't you see? The truth is tangled in your history, and it's waiting to be unleashed." Evan stood there, paralyzed by shock. The pieces were beginning to fall, but they remained scattered, chaotic, leaving a bitter taste of dread pooling in his stomach. What was happening? And as he searched their faces, a thought emerged, a flicker of hope. Would he dare to untangle it all? But before he could answer, the crowd surged, and everything faded into a blinding storm of confusion and fear. Evan's heart raced, thumping violently against his ribs as they ducked behind a food cart. The smell of roasted nuts and vendor grease filling the air. Samuel's grip tightened like a vice around his arm, his eyes darting toward the dark SUV blocking the street. Sweat beaded on Evan's forehead, his thoughts a jumbled maze of fear and confusion. "Stay low," Samuel whispered, urgent and raw. The shadows poured out into the street, men in dark suits with hardened faces. They scanned the crowd like hunters eyeing. Stories echoed in Evan's head, big guys who didn't play by the rules, and no one in an office could save him now. Who are they? Evan forced the words out, barely a whisper. "People who don't want the secret to get out," Samuel replied, his voice trembling, ready to do anything to keep it buried. Evan's mind reeled. Why him? He was a businessman, not some hero. The only battles he fought were over stock prices and market shares. Not this. Not life and death. Samuel's gaze pierced through him, desperation woven into the fabric of his worn coat. Suddenly, a shout erupted from the opposite end of the street. A little girl, no more than 6, tugged at her mother's sleeve. The tension snapped. One of the men turned sharply, eyes narrowing, and in that instant, everything shifted. A blinding flash tore through the chaos. A single shot rang out, sharp and loud, echoing over the city's roar. Evan's heart dropped into his stomach. Time slowed. The world swirled, but he couldn't move. Then came the terrifying silence. All around, people froze, their faces masks of shock. Samuel's eyes went wide, as if he'd seen a ghost. "Run!" he yelled, shaking Evan from his stupor. Evan jolted forward just as the crowd erupted into chaotic motion. But Samuel yanked him back, his face a mix of horror and urgency. "Not that way." Just as they turned, a flash of recognition brushed against Evan's conscience. He glanced back. One of the men, the one that had shouted, turned his head for a split second, eyes locking onto Evan's. The chill slithered down Evan's spine as he realized it was someone he knew. "Dante?" The name whispered from his lips before he could stop it. Samuel's grip loosened, surprise slashing across his weathered features. "You know him?" Evan felt a sick twist in his gut. The world felt like it was tilting. Dante had been a former mentor, a man with a reputation that made even the bravest hesitate. He'd retired early, but what was he doing here? With them? Evan's mind raced, conflicting thoughts crashing like waves. Was he part of this? Suddenly, everything he thought he knew splintered into shards, trust unraveling in an instant. "Evan, we need to move," Samuel snapped. But Evan stood frozen, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Dante, once a guiding light, was now a shadow looming over him, an enemy hidden behind a familiar smile, and an enemy that could cut deeper than any stranger. "We're in more trouble than I thought." Before he could turn away, a loud crash erupted behind him, the sound of shattering glass mingling with frantic screams. Evan's pulse thundered in his ears. How deep did this run? What other secrets lay buried beneath this city? The urgency hit him again. "I didn't know. I should have never gotten involved." Samuel's eyes darkened with a heavy truth. "You're not just involved now. You're the key." Evan's breath caught. Was he really, or merely a pawn in a game greater than himself? The darkness closed in. Options vanished. Fear wrapped around him like a serpent. But in that molten moment of realization, one thing was clear. Everything was about to change, and he had no idea what horrors awaited him. Could he trust Samuel? Or even himself? As chaos erupted around them, one thought kept echoing loudest in his mind. What if uncovering the truth cost him more than he could ever imagine? Evan's breath hitched as he turned back to Samuel. Everything around him felt like a fever dream, swirling together in chaos. The shadows crept closer, hungry for answers, while the figure of Dante stood there, seemingly untouched by the storm brewing around them. "Why are you here?" Evan's voice trembled, disbelief coloring every word. He couldn't tear his eyes away from Dante's face, a mask of someone he had once admired. "Because, Evan," Dante's voice cut through the air, low and dangerous, "you're standing in the way of a bigger plan." "What plan?" Samuel stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "What do you know?" For a moment, the world went silent. It was as if time had stopped. The tension thick enough to slice. And then the chaos exploded again. Horns blared, and the distant sound of sirens grew louder. Panic surged through the crowd as if fear itself was a living thing, pushing people further into the streets. But it wasn't the sirens that caught Evan's attention. It was the flash of blue lights. They cut through the darkness, illuminating the shadows like a beacon. Evan's heart raced as realization crashed over him. The police? Suddenly, Dante laughed, a low, eerie sound that sent chills racing down Evan's spine. "You still don't get it, do you?" he sneered. "They're not here to save you. They're here for him." Evan turned to Samuel, confusion blending with horror. "What? What does he mean?" "Samuel!" Angela's voice pierced the chaos, her figure emerging through the throng, desperate and frantic. "You need to tell them the truth!" The sound of sirens drew closer, mixing with the fallout of people screaming and shoving against one another. The air crackled with tension as the small alley seemed to close in. And then Samuel did the unthinkable. "You have to believe me, Evan," he said, voice steadying. "Tataran!" "Dante, he is the one leading them. I was part of something bigger than ourselves." Evan's mouth went dry as the ground shifted beneath him. "Wait, what are you saying?" "I'm the one who uncovered the truth," Samuel continued, his eyes dark with the weight of secrets too heavy to carry. "But it's not just the treasure. It goes back generations. Our families are intertwined in this dark legacy." "What?" Evan's world spun off its axis, the shadows closing in. "What do you mean, our families?" And then, just as the truth hung heavy in the air, a piercing scream erupted nearby, a woman's voice filled with terror. Evan turned instinctively, ice coursing through his veins. He saw a masked figure charging toward them, a weapon raised in the air. "Run!" he shouted. But at that moment, everything erupted into chaos. The bullet flew, a single shot rang out, echoing off the walls like a death knell, and the crowd erupted in panic. In that instant, time froze. The masked figure stumbled back, clutching their arm, eyes wild. But before Evan could process the scene, a cold realization washed over him, gripping his heart. The gunman had shot Dante. Dante fell to the ground, eyes wide, un luco de sol fasta por su cabeza. Pero aun cuando se colapsó, una sonrisa me topa en su labio, enseguida hasta él detener. Gasped, arrando su último de la aspiración, la voz llena de veneno. "Todo lo que piensas, sabes, es allá comenzado. El mundo, transformado por su culpa. Ve traición como vero, todas piezas se cayeron hacia el negro." Suddenly, the police were there, rushing forward, chaos swirling around them like a storm. All Evan could do was stand there, reeling from the deep, primordial truth that dug itself into his bones. What was the truth Samuel had hidden? What legacy connected him to Dante? Questions ricocheted in his mind, and as he looked down at the chaos unfolding, he felt one thing clearly. The game had changed in a way he could never have anticipated. The path before him was darker than he could imagine, twisted in ways that might leave no escape. "Samuel!" he shouted, but it only drowned in the chaos around. Everything felt like it was shifting, each secret weaving tighter around him. And the foundation of his life crumbled into dust. What price would he pay to uncover the truth still lurking in the shadows? Evan's whole world shattered, betrayal twisted in his gut like a knife. Dante lay sprawled on the ground, a pool of crimson spreading beneath him, his expression morphing into one of twisted satisfaction. Everything you thought you knew, it's just begun. The words echoed in Evan's mind, a mantra of devastation. Panic flared within him, igniting a desperate urge to move, to act, to understand. Samuel shook beside him, his face illuminating a wild cocktail of terror and fury. Angela stepped back, trepidation painted on her features, her wide eyes reflecting the urgency of the moment. Just then, a loud roar erupted from the entrance of the alley. Police officers charging into the fray, guns drawn, shouting orders that mixed into the symphony of chaos. "Get down! Hands where we can see them!" Evan froze, the weight of everything pressing down like a millstone. Sirens wailed in the distance, the blare merging into a cacophony that clawed at his senses. Samuel's words hung in the air, teetering on the edge of revelation. Before he could gather his thoughts, another shot rang out, this one sharper, more precise. Time seemed to slow as he turned, eyes wide, and there she was, an officer bursting through the crowd, her badge glinting under the flickering streetlights. But then she fired again, and this time the target shifted, directly toward Samuel. No! Evan lunged forward, but time had already twisted against him. The shot hit Samuel in the shoulder, spinning him to the ground with a cry of anguish that echoed through the alley. Evan felt his heart drop, his legs heavy and unresponsive. What was happening? Why was she shooting? "Stop! What are you doing?" he shouted, despair slashing through his voice. Then another voice broke through the din, a familiar, commanding tone that sent chills down his spine. "Stand down, officer!" Evan whipped around. It was Charlie, the very man he had thought was lost. The man who had played a dangerous game, apparently still very much in control of the pieces. "Charlie, you're alive?" "To you, yes," he sneered, fingers waving like a conductor orchestrating chaos. "But to them," he nodded toward the police, "they think I'm dead, you see. And no one expects in a world this topsy-turvy that I'd send someone to keep an eye on you." Evan's mind spiraled. "What did you do?" "It's a family legacy, Evan." Charlie smiled, a twisted assurance in his voice. "Those patterns, those connections, they're not just business, they're blood, and it all traces back to you." Before Evan could process this new layer of betrayal, he caught a glimpse of Samuel crumpled on the ground, his eyes filled with pain and an echo of the truth. "Stop!" Angela cried out again, desperation lining her voice. "You don't understand." But even as she said it, shadows shifted around them. The police were frantically trying to weave through the chaos, their shouts merging into a frantic mess of orders and commotion. Evan turned to Samuel, heart pounding like a desperate prisoner seeking escape. "Samuel, please, what's the truth?" But Samuel's face was pale, the sharp lines of anguish marking his features. "You need to listen. It's bigger than all of us," he gasped. "They want to control you." Then came a piercing scream, a strangled, horrifying noise that reverberated through the alley. Angela staggered back, clutching her throat as if she felt the knife of fear piercing her, eyes darting around for answers. In those frantic moments, as the chaos unfolded, a sudden explosion rattled the walls. Something detonated further down the street. People screamed, and the shockwave sent Evan stumbling backward into an unseen wall, the very foundation of his reality collapsing around him. As dust and debris rained down, his gaze locked onto a figure emerging from the smoke, a silhouette both familiar and foreign. It was a woman, her features shrouded in the remnants of the explosion, but the curves and lines struck a chord. Recognition shocked him to his core. "Mom?" The word escaped his lips like a prayer caught in the wind. In a world upside down, secrets swirling like a tempest, the revelation hung heavy in the air. The one he thought he had lost, the key to everything. And in that moment, as the truth layered thick and wild, Evan had to confront a new reality. Everything he believed was built on an intricate web of lies. Would he delve deeper into this tangled narrative? Or would the very foundation of his story unravel entirely? Evan stood there, breathless, as the chaos unfurled around him. The echoes of sirens merged with the distant cries of onlookers, a symphony of panic. Dante lay motionless on the ground, a dark aura surrounding him like the aftermath of a storm, and Evan felt the ground beneath him shift. "Mom?" The word fell from his lips, a whisper filled with both hope and terror. She stepped closer, her eyes locked onto his, a mixture of anguish and love. Evan, her voice tremendo, cargando un pesadelo historias. It's time to face the truth. Samuel right down on the ground, clutching his shoulder. Angela knelt beside him, panic etched on her face. "Hang on, Samuel! Help is coming!" Evan looked back at his mother, the person he thought he'd lost forever. "Why are you here? What happened?" "There are powers at play, Evan. Powers that have tied our families together longer than you realize. Dante and I, we were in this together, but it turned twisted." Evan's heart sank. "Twisted how?" "It involves control, wealth, secrets dating back generations. They sought to bury it, to keep it hidden," she confessed, and it felt like ice slicing through his veins. "You've unknowingly risen in the midst of it all, while we were trapped in a game for power. You have to break free, or they'll consume you too." As if summoned by her words, the chaos intensified. From the shadows emerged figures in suits, men eager for blood and secrets. They moved with the precision of wolves on the hunt, closing in, relentless. "Don't let them take you," Angela shouted, pulling Samuel up as the police struggled to regain control. "Run! Both of you!" Samuel cried, his voice strained but booming with urgency. Evan took a step back, torn between the need to flee and the urge to understand. But the truth was wrapped in fear, and he had to choose. "I can't leave you." "Go!" Samuel's voice cracked. "You are the key to shutting this down." With a sharp breath, Evan pushed forward, gripping his mother's arm. "We'll fight together. I won't abandon you." But she hesitated, weighing the danger in her gaze. "Sometimes you have to turn the tables, Evan. Know who to trust." Above, sirens blared louder, mixing with the shadows of chaos and the fear of betrayal. A violent crash echoed down the street as reinforcements arrived. The figures froze, shifting their eyes toward the commotion, and for a split second, the tension fractured. Evan saw his chance. Now! Move! They bolted down the alley, feet pounding against the pavement, adrenaline driving them forward. Behind them, the shadows lunged. "Don't look back," his mother called, and her voice cut through the noise like a knife. In the distance, a figure emerged from the fray. Charlie, the unseen master of the game. "You think you can escape this?" he shouted, voice laced with a threat. "The game has just begun!" Evan's heart raced even faster. There was still uncertainty, still fear, but he felt a flicker of something else. Resolve. They had to end this, once and for all. As they burst into the street, lights flashing, officers shouting, the world felt alive with chaos. But among it all, Evan knew one thing. The truth was more than just a treasure. It was the thread tying their lives together, and the weapon against the darkness haunting them. Evan turned to his mother, eyes filled with determination. "We will uncover the truth." And as they joined the fray, one thought echoed in his mind. Everything was about to change, but together they would face whatever came next. Now, I need to talk to you about something important. You have to subscribe immediately. Don't miss the upcoming exclusive stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let everyone know this story deserves to be seen. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your words matter. Lastly, don't wait even a second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. This is the moment to show your support.